I often hear something from Protestants and some Catholics, and I've possibly even heard it from some Orthodox people, but I can't remember them saying this. People say things like, "Well, it's not like when you go to confession, you could. It's not like you could just murder somebody and then just go to confession and ask God's forgiveness." Yes, you can. And then people say, "Well, you have to stop. You have to, repentance is a turning around, a changing of life." That is correct. That's the truest sense of the word. But if I go out and have sex with a woman who I just met, and then go to confession, confess my sins before God in church. The priest is standing for the church as I stand or kneel in front of the image of the bridegroom, Christ. Yeah, I am forgiven. And if I do that 100 times, go out the next day and see a woman that I don't know who she is, and we agree to go to her place or my place and have a one-night stand, and then keep doing that, and I keep returning to my confessor, which happens to be my parish priest, confess my sins for God and the church, and ask forgiveness, they are forgiven. Even though I keep repeating the same bad behavior. What's the key there? It's that I keep returning. And this is the mistake that people make. It's when you stop going to confession. Going to confession, it changes you. The liturgy changes you. Consuming the body and blood changes you for the better. And people don't believe this. It's almost like trying to tell somebody, hey, if you lift those heavy weights that you can barely lift, you'll get stronger. Or if you start running, you'll get better at running, because it's exercising the muscle. And somebody who's never exercised or lift weights and doesn't know anybody who's ever exercised or lift weights, and their entire culture is about destroying this idea of lifting weights or running to get stamina and strength, will, eschew the idea of it. This is pretty much how religion and confession and the liturgy and the Eucharist work. Your evils, it's only when you say, no, what I did, God cannot forgive. And people always say, well, you need to forgive yourself. Well, if you're really capable of forgiving yourself really easily, you're probably a sociopath. No, go back to God and the church, and returning there, and participating in liturgical worship, whether it be Vespers or Divine Liturgy on Sunday mornings. And I highly suggest going to Divine Liturgy on Sunday mornings, but Vespers are awesome as well. I shouldn't say this, but I kind of like Vespers better. And you go to confession. It's returning, right? The prodigal son was not praised for not returning to his father. He did everything wrong, and it's because he returned that his father was overjoyed and slaughtered the best animal and threw him a feast. So this nonsense of, oh, well, it's not like you could just continually do stuff bad and keep going to confession. That's the point. Keep going to confession. until you no longer, you know, actively do these bad things. We're always going to sin in our day-to-day lives, right? But this idea of of halting, going to um, going to church and participating in the culture and the traditions and the liturgy and the things that the apostles practiced and passed down to us, and the martyrs shed gallons of blood to pass down to us. To throw that away is ludicrous. And sometimes, you know, you're in a rut or in a way where your sin kind of has to run its course. Is that any reason to not go and seek the forgiveness of God? You know, to turn around your whole life, or to turn around just even one of your major passions, can be a lifetime worth of work. So don't expect it to happen overnight. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. So, yeah. Hey, you know what? If you're doing X for years or daily, God's position until the end of days is forgiveness. So go to his body that he established at Pentecost so that he'd always be here, you know, in the form of the church, and stand or kneel before his icon and ask forgiveness from God, with the priest being the stand-in for the witness of the church. And when he says those words, you know, I, a humble sinner, hath no power to forgive, but, you know, having Christ bestowed on the apostles and everything, he can actually assure you that when you rise, you've been forgiven. Those sins are forgotten. And yes, they are forgotten, even if it's the 70th time that you've come back there committing the same sin again. So I hate this ludicrous idea of you think you could just go and the priest says magic words and you're forgiven. Well, that's a very, very vulgar way of putting it, but yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. And it's almost like a slap in the face to people. They're so shocked when I say yes. I believe that. You know, it's like they're offended at it, even though they're trying to mock my religion and describe it in the most crass way. When I say, "Oh yeah, I believe that," it shocks them. It's really strange.